The major media are selectively reporting the FBI and DOJ's briefing of key lawmakers last week about that informant in the Trump presidential campaign. That's typical of today's screaming headlines. ABC's website blared, "Gowdy disputes Trump spy claim, says FBI acted properly." But that ignores a number of key points Oversight Chair Trey Gowdy made on Fox last night. The first was that the DOJ made clear that the president was not and is not a target of the Russia investigation, despite the Democrats' constant disinformation on that point. Gowdy also could not explain why the FBI did not simply do that defensive briefing of the Trump campaign instead of relying on an informant inside his campaign. On The Angle last night, former federal prosecutor Andy McCarthy laid out his theory.
There's no question that they spied on the campaign. If you were looking at a corporation and you thought that the corporation was being corrupted by three people, you would go to the CEO and say, I think we have a problem here. We need your cooperation. What they did instead was send covert operatives to pry information out.
Now, this is why a number of conservatives are unhappy that Gowdy kind of muddied the waters or would downplay Trump's spy claims. One of them is Dan Bangino of NRI TV. And also joining us is Daniel Goldman, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Great to see both of you. Dan Bangino, first, let's go to you on this. We invited Gowdy on the show. We want him to come on. I think he's a really smart guy. A little confusing, kind of the way he approached this issue, although a little bit misrepresented, I think, in the press. But where do you come down on what he said specifically about the Spygate question?
No, I think Gowdy's appearance was disgraceful. I think you're being nice to him. I understand, Laura, but Gowdy's appearance is now being used as propaganda by the left. And what he said was so completely out of line and factually incorrect. Laura, let's just run through some basic facts here, okay? So according to Gowdy, the FBI ran it by the book, how the Americans would have wanted them to run the investigation. Really? So why didn't they notify Congress for 8 months, Laura? 8 months about the investigation when prior procedure was to notify Congress quarterly on sensitive investigations. Another question for you. If they ran it by the book, how is it that two suspicious, potentially felony leaks of information happened in both October and January to the New York Times and Washington Post? Is that an example, Mr. Gowdy, of a finely tuned investigation run like the Americans would have wanted, by the way, hidden from Congress? Seriously, give me a break. He did nothing but feed the leftist propaganda machine yesterday, and he should go back and clarify those outrageous, absurd remarks.
Well, I think he's obsessing over the definition of spy within the intelligence community.